Welcome back to the Free Code Camp podcast. I'm Quincy Larson, teacher and founder of freeCodeCamp.org. Today, we're going to talk with Ania Kubów, software engineer and teacher of many Free Code Camp courses. But first, I want to kick it off with some community news. Free Code Camp just published this Python machine learning course where you'll learn how to control a robotic arm using computer vision. You'll set up serial communication between Python and a cheap Arduino microcontroller board. Then you'll learn how to detect physical objects using the open source Python libraries MediaPipe and OpenCV. You'll also learn how to manipulate servo motors and LED displays. We also published a course that will help you prepare for the Google Professional Cloud Architect Certification exam. This is a pretty popular certification exam if you want to get into DevOps or if you just want to be able to provision cloud servers within Google's cloud. And Andrew Brown is a CTO who has passed practically every DevOps exam under the sun, and he teaches this course. You'll learn about infrastructure as code, serverless architecture, networking, monitoring, logging, and more. This is a 16-hour YouTube course. Of course, it's free. Should go without saying, everything on freeCodeCamp is free. So dive in and learn a whole lot about cloud and monitoring and all that. We also published a really cool course on Three.js, which is a powerful 3D rendering tool that tons of artists use to build games and interactive experiences that can run right inside a browser. This freeCodeCamp course will walk you through building 5 practical projects with this JavaScript library. You'll learn about foundational concepts before moving on to textures, dynamic particle effects, and interactive physics. This is a 2-hour course on the freeCodeCamp YouTube channel. And we also published a short tutorial that will walk you through the bag of words algorithm, which is an important method that machine learning engineers have used to turn text into numbers so they can train their models. This tutorial will teach you how to use bag of words, how it works, and you're going to look at a ton of Python code examples to really understand it. This is also the precursor to more recent developments that scientists have gone through with creating Word2Vec, Glove, and other algorithms for mapping the relationships between words. This is approximately a 10-minute read, not heavy reading at all. Link is in the description. Finally, I wanted to share some insights that the CEO of Amazon Web Services, who tons of companies use for cloud infrastructure and services, freeCodeCamp uses them for some of them. For example, he did an interview where he shared some really blunt observations about AI hype, specifically AI's ability to replace engineers. And I wanted to quote from some of the things he said here. Of course, this is just a CEO. This is not a dev, but I think he did work as a dev at some point. And I think just because he's in charge of such a large company, AWS, really the core profitability center of Amazon these days, and infrastructure to so many, I think his opinion does matter. So I'm gonna go ahead and quote some of these things pretty much verbatim. I try to take notes. I was at a leadership group and people were telling me that they think that with AI, we can replace all of the junior people in our company. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Junior devs are probably the least expensive employees you have. They're the most enthusiastic about AI tools. How's it going to work 10 years in the future when you haven't built up any of your talent? And then he says, my view is you absolutely want to keep hiring kids out of college and teaching them the right ways to go build software and decompose problems just as much as ever. So very staunch anti, let's just use AI instead of hiring people type person, which is nice counterweight to a lot of the CEOs that are coming out and saying, we're not hiring people. We laid a bunch of people off and now we're just using AI for everything. And he's kind of calling BS on that. So I think it's a cool perspective to have. And, on the freeCodeCamp podcast, we are giving you balanced takes on AI. This is like a hype free zone. And we're going to be talking with Ania Kubów about a lot of how she uses AI. She's taught many popular courses on AI, but real quick, the song of the week, this deep cut from 1981 by Italian disco singer Ago, I believe is how their name is pronounced. off the For You album. This is 1981. I love the groove here. I love the way the bass sits in the mix. It's in the description if you want to listen to it after the podcast. And now let's talk about Ania Kubów. She's a software engineer, prolific programming teacher on YouTube. She, during this interview, shares lots of tips for getting into game development using JavaScript and browser games as an entry point, how to keep your focus in an increasingly distracted world, how AI tools are a jackhammer, and you usually just need a regular hammer. You don't necessarily need a jackhammer to hammer in a nail, right? But you do need it to do like destroy like a big concrete wall, for example. So when to use AI tactfully and when it makes sense. And she also shares what she's learned from hanging out with a lot of Chinese developers. She recently went to some conferences over there, and she grew up in Dubai from like age 0. And she talks a lot about how the city has changed over the decades. She now lives there. She's raising her family in Dubai. Support for this podcast comes from a grant from Wix Studio. Wix Studio provides developers tools to rapidly build websites with everything out of the box that extend, replace, and break boundaries with code. Learn more at wixstudio.com. Support also comes from the 10,889 kind folks who support FreeCodeCamp through a monthly donation. Join these kind folks and help our mission by going to freecodecamp.org/donate. Ania Kubów, welcome to the FreeCodeCamp podcast.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me here. I've been looking forward to this for a while now. So, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. We're thrilled to have you here. I just want to start by just sharing my screen and showing people who are watching the video version. Of course, I'll just verbally narrate this. Just the sheer volume of courses FreeCodeCamp has published, taught by you over the years. Of course, learn JavaScript by building 7 games, got 1.2 million views. You've taught courses on all kinds of like AI, like embedding things, retrieval augmented generation. You've got a very popular course on prompt engineering. You've taught courses on game dev with JavaScript, CSS animations, like all kinds of stuff. And many of these courses have like 1 million or more views. This Google Gemini course that we got a grant from Google to develop that has been quite popular as well for AI code generation. Your popular NoSQL database course. Like, you've developed so many courses, and in the process, you had to learn a ton of stuff. How do you go about learning new skills?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's crazy to see my journey with FreeCodeCamp, starting off making JavaScript games and then developing into using tools and more recently AI tools. So I've learned so many tools, as you've said, and I think at the beginning, maybe it was a bit more daunting, but I feel like I'm a pro now. You know, just go to the documentation, learn from there, use their examples. A lot of these companies actually have their own GitHub repositories, so heavily referring to that as well and seeing what other people have built have definitely helped. But yeah, documentation every single time.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And one of the questions a lot of people are asking is, AI tools have come out. They have, in theory, made people's lives easier in some respects and harder in other respects. But how do you incorporate AI tools into your workflow of researching and developing courses?
For sure. So I would say that AI tools are a bit hit and miss still, especially in terms of coding. So I don't tend to rely on them too much. For doing research, 100%, as many people I think do tend to use Claude or ChatGPT kind of instead of Google sometimes, specifically when it comes to certain topics. So using it as a Google, is what I tend to do primarily, but always sense checking, because I can't tell you the amount of times that I've asked ChatGPT or Claude to do something and been like, this is definitely not correct. So researching 100%, taking code snippets on, maybe not so much.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the comments on your videos will actually say like, Ania, are you AI? Like, is this a real person I'm looking at? Or is this, like, I think AI has heightened the skepticism that a lot of people have when they watch like a video on coding, like how much of this is AI generated?
Yes, I can't tell you how many people think I'm an AI. At the beginning, I was kind of like, wait, hold on. No, and kind of responding, but now I'm just like, you know what, whatever. Like, I'm clearly not an AI. You could scroll down and see that I'm a real human. But I'm not surprised. I've been fooled. I've been seeing videos on the internet just going, wow, that really looks like a real human. The skin texture, the movements, everything. So we are living in a very scary era at the moment. And I wonder where it's going to go.
Yeah, I think it was like Google had like a car commercial, a car conference commercial. Did you see that? It was like they're walking around like a car convention and like everything is generated. And it really does look like if you were walking around like some sort of car convention with like the, the showroom kind of thing and the people being interviewed on the proverbial person on the street interviews and stuff like that. It felt pretty real. But obviously what they were saying was not stuff that humans would say. It would be like, hey, I'm in this weird big commercial. I'm not even real, stuff like that. It is going to become harder and harder to differentiate real people from generated people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think always knowing and having that authenticity behind you does kind of differentiate you from just an AI talking head. I feel like the talking head parts maybe are a little bit more AI kind of, you can kind of tell more. But having an authentic story and kind of sharing more about yourself online is definitely where I see content creators going at the moment. Kind of like we're doing now with this podcast.
Yes. And this podcast, I don't use any AI in any aspect except for transcription, I think, and like timestamps and stuff like that. But I don't use AI to come up with the questions. I'm actually here, like in front of a camera, conversing with you in real time. I just want to reassure you people, like, I have no intention of doing that sort of like voice synthesis or anything to like be lazy, essentially. It's not that much work. And it's a lot of fun talking with people like Ania in real time and having those little imperfections. I don't even do any editing on these videos unless like, a fire alarm goes off or somebody has a coughing fit or something. And I'm huge on preserving that authenticity because I think a lot of that is going to vanish.
It's going to vanish. Like even now I read stuff and I'm like, this is ChatGPT. Like you can tell. And even just the intros that some people do, I'm just like, it's just so generic. Everyone's doing the same thing. So talks like this, where nothing is scripted, I think will be really refreshing. And I think people will kind of crave that.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig deeper into your background because you have a very international, interesting background. You are in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates. How did you end up there?
Well, I feel like there's a massive hype at the moment of people moving here, but I actually pretty much am born and raised here. So I came here when I was 0 years old. Obviously, I don't remember that, but I do remember growing up here. So 0 to 18, I was here, I was at school. Basically, before Dubai was even a thing, I'd tell people back home in Poland, where my family's from, oh, I live in Dubai, and people just look at me like, where is that? So now I feel like, like a lot of people obviously will know, but back then it was, gosh, I can't even tell you how many people lived here. It really wasn't many. There was just one road, which is the Sheikh Zayed Road in the Trade Center Apartments, for anyone that is aware of Dubai, and that's where I used to live. So yeah, it's changed so much. It's grown massively. It's just been crazy to kind of, I guess, be a part of that and see a country change, or sorry, not a country, but an emirate change so much.
Yeah. And let's talk about how, like, what life is like there. Because my understanding is it's a relatively hot coastal town. It is part of, like a generally arid part of the world. And to some extent, like, I imagine, like, it depends a lot on, like, imports of, like, agricultural goods and stuff like that. What is it like living there?
Yeah, so I feel like it's changing all the time. It's changed in the last 3 years. There's been obviously a lot more people coming here and a lot more brands opening. So it used to be the case where, when I was younger, there'd be only a certain amount of supermarkets. Now you've got every supermarket from all over the world. So some very big UK brands are opening too. That doesn't mean that everything is imported. There has been a massive focus on, supporting local farms and trying to grow stuff locally, which I really support. We can go onto that topic a little bit later because I do that in my coffee shop too, which is something that I want to share with you. But in general, it is like a massive multicultural mixing pot. One of the things that I'd say was the best about my childhood is going to school with people from literally all over the world. I was the only Polish person, definitely in my year, maybe not so much the school actually, but I have friends from all over the world now. Wherever I go in the world, I can pretty much know that I will know someone there from that experience. So yeah, and just being so aware of other people's cultures, I think is something that I would want for my own children as well.
Yeah. And speaking of your own children, you just had your first child.
Yes.
Axel.
I did. Only 9 months ago.
Right?
That's correct. Yeah. So that's crazy. I feel like it was just around the corner, but yeah, being a parent is wild. If you haven't had a chance to experience that, it's definitely something that, has been a massive journey. So yeah, it's been good.
And you're raising him in Dubai.
Yes. Yeah. So raising him here. Potentially going to go to school here as well. So yeah, we'll see about that.
Awesome. Well, one of the things you mentioned earlier is your coffee shop, and I want to talk a bit about that. And I'm going to share my screen for anybody watching the video edition. I'll just verbally narrate for those listening to the audio edition. This is your coffee shop, homebrew.ae, which is the Arab Emirates top-level domain, TLD. Homebrew, like the open source, like Mac tool for like, it's basically like apt-get, but for Mac. Homebrew.ae. And it says here, homebrew, coffee, Dubai specialty. Maybe you can talk a little bit about this cafe that you run.
Yeah, 100%. So this actually came from, as a software developer, a lot of people do work from home, but I really liked working from cafes. Every day I'd go explore a different cafe. And I think one day I was like, why don't I just start my own coffee brand? And I did. I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go for it. Like, you only live once. I rented a space. It's not very big. It's like 300 square foot, small for a coffee shop. But I just had so much fun building the brand. I actually reached out to people that follow me on Instagram. And I was like, hey, I love coffee shops. I love working with coffee shops. What should we name this coffee shop? And because the majority of people who follow me are software developers, we kind of came up with some cool coding words, which is how Homebrew came about. And I love it because, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. If you're a software developer, you kind of know. But to anyone else, Homebrew kind of even sounds like a homemade brew, like a coffee shop. So it's kind of like a little secret Easter egg, but in real life, not on a website.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think about it anyway.
So you loved working out of cafes, and now you can work out of your own cafe.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Even though I don't get much work done in there anymore because, running a coffee shop, you're right, is actually quite involved. So the idea of going there and coding, it doesn't happen so much anymore, but definitely working in a different way now.
Yeah. And of course, like when people think of the Middle East and they think of places like the UAE, they think coffee because coffee is like a really key part of culture out there, and like we literally call like the good beans Arabica, like Arab, right? Is that like a big thing in the UAE? Is like these kind of boutique coffee shops?
100%. I feel like coffee culture here is huge. There's obviously it depends on where you're from, but a lot of people here don't drink either. So coffee is kind of a way to get together with friends in the evening, whereas, in other places, maybe you go to the pub. That's very popular in London. And there's just so many amazing coffee shops here. There really is quite a range from speciality like we do, or just more like relaxed kind of Starbucks ones. There's a lot. It's huge.
Yeah.
Matcha also. Matcha is on the rise.
So matcha is like a kind of like a powdered tea?
Like a Japanese, well, we use a Japanese tea, yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So you serve that. You serve matcha as well at Homebrew.
We do, yes. We've actually just opened our third location. So I've been busy since opening last year in 2024. We had the small one, which was just a 300 square foot shop. Then we went a little bit bigger. And now we just opened in Satwa. And for those of you who know Dubai, Satwa, again, growing up there, the ads is kind of like the original OG area to hang out in. A lot of people maybe would say that it's, it's not probably where the tourists go, but I love it. It's got so much life. And I'm so grateful that I was able to open my coffee shop there in a boutique, really, really cool boutique hotel.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you got a lot going on. Of course, you're running your coffee chain, and then you have your own YouTube channel where you're creating courses, and then you're creating courses on the FreeCodeCamp community YouTube channel, such as a recent course that you published that I'm going to link to in the description, which is your course on building your own AI shopping agent that can go out and do, product inquiries for you. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the development of that course and what it teaches.
Yeah, for sure. So this was a really great course. It is basically creating your own AI agent. So one that actually makes decisions. Do you decide that you need to go to a database, a MongoDB database, or do you not? Do you just chat to the agent? So these are decisions that are all being made, and we code this together. A great example of actually this was developed by me. Again, I'm not an AI, it's me. I sat down, I did this. It took a long time. There was a lot of back and forth on the final project, and we finally got the final look and feel and teaching lessons from it. So, I mean, it's kind of a shame because so much time goes into these, and for someone to go like, oh, it's just AI, I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not. The only time I did use AI, I'm going to be 100% honest, was to do the kind of sample data, because it isn't.
Yes.
Yeah. So with any kind of stuff like this, we do use kind of sample data. So for example, in this one, we used furniture, and I essentially used AI to come up with furniture for me. So before, it would take me ages. I'd be like, oh, I have to think of the name for this table. I have to think of a price. I have to think of a description. I have to find an image somewhere. No, that would take me 6 hours minimum. Now I just kind of use AI to create that JSON file for me, which is such a huge time saver.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, when I was doing software, like Rails development, Ruby on Rails development, they had a library called Faker. And it would just generate a whole bunch of fake profiles. You could say,
yes,
okay, give me people's names and their ages and their locations. And it would just come up with all that. But now you could just go into Claude or GPT and basically say, hey, I need 20 records with this structure, for example. And it can create those. So that's what you're talking about when you say creating sample data.
Yeah, 100%. And it's great for that. You don't really need to sense check it that much. It's pretty easy for AI to kind of do that job.
Yeah. So as a mom, as somebody who's developing courses, as somebody who's running a coffee chain, among your many other endeavors, how do you structure your time? Maybe you can walk us through a typical week and how you allocate those precious hours.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've always been quite good at time management. I'm someone who hyper focuses. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. When I get to something, I could just sit there for hours. It's kind of scary. Hopefully that doesn't go away in this generation of TikTok and short form content, but I've managed to somehow keep it up. So what I would do is just the night before even write a to-do list, because I feel even waking up in the morning, you do lose time just thinking and planning your day. And my brain is actually most active in the evening anyway. So I tend to use it for that and create a to-do list. I actually use Google Calendar quite a lot and just time block everything. So I'd be like, okay, today I'm going to make 20 reels. Yeah. Then I'm going to reply to emails. And that really kind of helps me keep on track. Because yes, like I said, the amount of time that's lost just by what should I do next? Should I do this? And then before you know, it's 20 minutes has gone by. Those 20 minutes are really valuable, especially when, you have a family that also deserves your attention and a coffee shop and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, so calendar driven kind of productivity. I've heard it described this way. If you put something on a to-do list, it's on your to-do list, but you still have to but if you just put it directly on your calendar and block out the time, you've saved yourself a lot of additional kind of mental overhead when okay, what's next on the list? So I've heard a lot of very productive people use the calendar approach that you're advocating for. And I personally have started using that as well for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. It's so simple and it doesn't require any kind of like you buying extra apps or anything. It's just Google Calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. So shout out to these calendar apps and just the utility of putting something like making a decision. And you said you think best at night.
Yes.
So you're doing a lot of your kind of creative, divergent thinking at night, and then you're structuring things so you can wake up and you can hit the ground running. You got everything laid out for what you need to do.
Yeah, I'm not a morning person as much as I'd love to be, and I've tried. So having a clear outline in the morning helps me make the morning productive too. And when you have like a small kid who wakes up at 6 a.m., it's kind of inevitable that you get up as well. So
yeah. Yeah, we nicknamed our daughter Rooster because she literally 6 a.m. every day. Doesn't matter the time zone. She's up and she's freaking out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So attention span depleting. This is one of the things you've talked about, of course. FreeCodeCamp does publish on TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, and like we need to be everywhere where people are, and people are on these apps. And you mentioned that you think that attention spans may be shortening.
Yes.
How have you observed this among just people that you've interacted with?
I don't know if it's so much interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, but just seeing where content is going, what is doing the best. And it seems to be the shorter form videos, the shorter ones that are just getting shorter and shorter. So it's not maybe so much interacting with people so much. Maybe it is, and I just haven't noticed, but it's just seeing the trends that are emerging from the content being created online. I'm sure that's affecting us. I'm not sure exactly how it is translating to the younger generation yet, because we haven't seen it really pan out. They're just being exposed to this short content now, and how that's going to affect them in later years, we don't know. But is it good? My mind says no, but is it just something that we have to kind of accept and adapt to? Yeah, these are really interesting questions that have definitely crossed my mind. What do you think?
Well, I don't let my kids watch any vertical video. That's my, it's very simple heuristic. If it's vertical video, you can't watch it, kids. You have to watch a horizontal video, which generally all the stuff I watch on YouTube are like these long video essays and stuff like that some of which are several hours long, or video courses like the ones you develop, so I can learn. I find that it takes time to teach something meaningful. Like, I'm not learning how to make an omelet here. I mean, you could show that really sped up, add the oil, add the egg, stir, add the chives or whatever. Like those kind of step-by-step instructional things I think work, because you don't need to have deep knowledge of how food cooks, the emulsifying process. You don't need to know, it's just, these are the steps. Just do it, and then you'll have an okay omelet. And I think that's totally fine. What FreeCodeCamp generally focuses on is deep skills that you do have to have a lot of prerequisite knowledge. Like, we're all building on top. You can try to build your own AI shopping agent without any knowledge of programming, but things will work a lot better if you at least understand how databases work, how scripting languages work, how an API works, things like that. So
yeah,
I'm worried that a lot of people are going to jump to just quick, if it can't fit in a 60-second short or a 60-second Instagram reel or a 60-second TikTok, figure out a way to fit it in there for me, but it's not you can't fit it in there.
No, you can't.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My worry is that people just stop learning the fundamentals, and then how do you fully understand something, really? That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
So but not worrying about it either. Kind of I guess, maybe you can equate it to, for example, plumbing. I don't really know how to plumb, I have to call someone else.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the same, and maybe this is where the software developers who do learn the fundamentals become way more desirable, right, than the people who just want to surface something and build something. But when they show you the code, you see there's lots of stuff that is completely not necessary, or like could be completely taken out. So I think there's definitely something to be thought about there, still kind of learning the fundamentals before using all these AI tools and so on.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, FreeCodeCamp, I'm not going to get up on my soapbox, but like FreeCodeCamp's core curriculum is structured around learning the fundamentals so that you can information graze later, but you still have that strong foundation that you're standing on to be able to make sense of the world in terms of software development. And
someone who understands how everything works is definitely far better off than someone who is just using the tools like me and plumbing.
yeah, exactly. Like, and I'll learn just in time. Okay, how do I hook this board into my washing machine to get it to continue running for another year or two before I have to replace it? Like, I'll learn that stuff just in time, but I can't confuse that with, oh, I'm like an electrical engineer now.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think there's like a huge place for just-in-time learning, but at the same time, it can give people this illusion of competence.
Yes.
You can feel like you know way more than you actually do, and then you open up your editor and you're like, all right, I'm going to build this, but like you have no idea where to even start.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you approach preserving your attention span and not letting, because you're in these environments, right? You're creating videos for these short form video platforms that I think a lot of people would blame for eroding people's attention span. You're using tools like Claude and GPT to do research, whereas it used to be you went to the library, you talked to the librarian, you got your Dewey Decimal System out and your file card, and there was it was a much more active, deliberate process to do research or to learn a new skill. And now you can kind of just have a conversation with an LLM and get dangerous with the technology. Like, how are you preserving your fundamental skills when you have access to these powerful tools for kind of like almost faking it till you make it if you wanted to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like obviously creating short form videos and everything, that's fine. I think it becomes dangerous when you let it consume you completely. And I've seen people just scrolling on TikTok and Instagram for hours and hours. I'm like, how? Like, it just hurts my brain to even see it. I'm not saying like a little bit of everything is good in moderation. Same for AI. In moderation, it's great. Using it for the right stuff, it's great. But you don't want to rely on it all the time. Like your brain would probably rot. You wouldn't use it. So using it in the right context, I think, is the most important thing, and knowing when to use it and what to use it for. So like we just talked about the fundamentals, I think learning fundamentals is great. Doing the boring stuff like the JSON, use AI, great. And it's just about becoming this kind of person who has all the tools on the table and knowing which one to pick up for what job.
Yeah, I mean, a great analogy. I mean, since we're literally talking about tools, when do you use, a hammer versus a sledgehammer versus a jackhammer, right?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't want to try to use a jackhammer to hammer in a nail. That wouldn't work well, but I guess in theory you could do it. It would just be extremely messy,
Yeah.
right? And so I think we're going to get this. I'm worried that we'll have this generation of people that want to get things done, and they're going to be using jackhammers to hammer in nails.
Oh yeah, 100%. You already see it at the moment, and I think it's worrying? No, I think it creates opportunities for the people who do learn, I keep saying the fundamentals, but the fundamentals, and do have the proper knowledge, because they'll definitely outshine. And to someone who knows what they're talking about, they'll be the clear kind of expert on the topic. I'm not saying that, people get by without learning. I've heard, I don't know if that's true, but you hear of all these people creating all these apps and getting loads of funding, and they just built it using ChatGPT. Again, I don't know if these are not verified stories.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all kind of heard them around. Maybe they are true.
Yeah, I mean, there was that T app scandal where, like, I don't know if you heard about this, but basically, this developer in San Francisco, and he had some devs working with him, and basically built like a pretty brittle code base. And the initial accusation was, oh, he built that code base with AI. No, apparently it was actually built by developers. They just did a really shoddy job. So there was this big security breach, right? So you can have bad code without incorporating AI. It's just that AI makes it easier to have bad code, in my experience.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, I mean, security breaches and getting pwned because you didn't consider security along the way. That's a tale as old as time.
Because you probably didn't even know to include security, right? That's the kind of thing that you'd miss if you kind of just relied on AI. And you're like, does this app look great? And it's like, yes, this app's look great. And then it fails, and you're like, oh, this app failed. Oh, sorry. Of course, yes, it failed. And it's just like not even getting a straight answer. So yeah, I feel. Back to my point about the tools, I really feel like, yes, definitely stay curious, learn every single tool out there, because having that knowledge to choose the right tool for the right job is definitely where everyone should be.
Yeah. And again, I want to remind everybody listening to this, you've created tons of courses on, retrieval augmented generation, vector databases, MCPs, like all these different topics, right, that are like at the forefront of using AI. And so we're hearing real talk from somebody who's teaching how to use these tools. Like, these are not a panacea is kind of what I'm taking away. Like, these are just more tools in your toolbox. And people who are deluded into thinking these are a panacea are kind of in for a world of hurt. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah,
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, I want to talk a little bit about people's ability to sit down and learn programming. We've been talking about the diminished attention span as a result of people spending a lot of time using these like dopamine-rich, serotonin-rich platforms where you're just scrolling. And one way I heard TikTok described is it used to be you had to make concerted decisions about what you wanted to watch. You'd go to YouTube and you'd search in something. And that's how I use YouTube primarily. It's not the For You page. It's me searching for different topics that I'm interested in. And at somewhere along the line with the recommendation algorithms, it switched from what do you want to watch? That was the decision you wanted to make, to what do you not want to watch? Because like TikTok or Instagram or whatever, they just start showing you the video and then you swipe away. So your main decision is what to not watch rather than what to watch. It completely changes that dynamics. And first of all, is that an accurate characterization of these platforms coming from somebody who admittedly does not use short form video platforms at all?
Yes. I mean, I would. Have I really noticed that? No, I don't really think I've noticed it as much as you say. Perhaps, yeah, it does happen. What I have noticed, I mean, the algorithm's changing all the time. As someone who creates content, I'll be on a roll. I'll be like, oh my God, my videos are getting so much views. And then suddenly something happens and I'm like, what's going on? So, and it's kind of like a black box, like no one really knows. You can have your guesses. At the moment, I feel there's a massive change in that. Before it was all about the subscribers. Now that seems to have shifted and it's all about the views on videos. No one pays attention that much to the subscribers. I feel like people now are much more, what's the word, kind of protective over their followers. They don't give them out so easily, and likes. So views is definitely what you're kind of seeing, especially like companies look out for. I mean, you'll see people now, like, yeah, I feel like getting a following on these programs, like these platforms like Instagram and TikTok, it's very difficult to get to someone to give you a follow. They're much more precious than they were before.
How much use does that translate into actual, like I've heard on TikTok, you can have a video with like hundreds of thousands of views, and then your next video can have like 1,000 views.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it just goes to show that I think the content that's being made is valued more. Whether that's a good thing or not is questionable, because I think people are just producing content that is not even true sometimes, just controversial. Rage bait is quite a recent thing where people are just saying stuff to really annoy someone so it gets views. So I feel like it's kind of ruining content in a way, this latest algorithm change. just the most outlandish thing. And yeah, just sometimes just flat out not true. And they know it. And they're just posting it so people go, this isn't true. But obviously then that's engagement and it gets more views. So
and negative engagement is perceived as the same as positive engagement. I mean, YouTube and some of these platforms maybe have some sentiment analysis, like this person's talking smack on the video and saying the video is not good, but it's still engagement. And what these platforms are doing is trying to boost engagement and time on site, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like sometimes, as someone who makes content on coding tips, my content's quite consistent. I get the same amount of views on pretty much every video. I make coding tips and so on. But is it really growing so much? Probably not anymore, because it's not anything controversial. It's not anything like...
Yeah. And freeCodeCamp's YouTube channel, we've experienced the same phenomenon. Like, just putting good quality information out there. There are a lot of people that really appreciate that. And a lot of people will be like, wow, this is a really well-designed course. I can tell you put a lot of thought into it. And then, but there may just not be as many people interested in that in the era when they can just get quick, dopamine hits by watching somebody code like 3x speed really quickly. I built this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I used this AI code gen tool to essentially create my code base in 5 seconds, check out my app, and that sort of stuff. It is more arresting and grabbing and dramatic.
That's true, but that doesn't mean it won't change again. Like, I don't know, I feel like rage bait it's not necessarily new, but it's kind of maybe the one that's on my mind that's the newest, that I'm just like, where's this world going? And soon it'll probably be something else. People have figured out that rage bait is just there to bait you. Another thing will come up and be kind of like a tactic or a hook for people creating content online.
Yeah, and I want to tell everybody about this law that comes from a long time ago, 2009, Bettridge's Law of Headlines. And I think this is maybe an adage that goes way back before that. But I think the maximum has been cited in other names since 1991. But it's basically, if a headline can be answered like a headline, like, is AI making us dumber? If it can be, and it has a question mark, and if the headline can be answered yes or no, just assume the answer is no and keep moving. Don't watch the video. Don't read the article because it's poor structuring, and it's also kind of like what you said, like curiosity baiting or however you want to say it. Mm-hmm. It's posing a question that is not a legit question necessarily. And I mean, that's like a bad example. Is AI making us dumber? Because it may very well be. But if I say like, is AI about to hit a brick wall in terms of progress or something like that? That's a frequent YouTube headline that I see, or a YouTube video title. And the answer is almost always, we don't know, or no. and so just save yourselves time and avoid those videos with that structure to their headline would be my humble advice. So I want to dive into your relationship with Chinese developers. I understand you recently went over there. And, full disclosure, I went to grad school in China. I'm not affiliated with any of the government or anything like that over there. But my wife is from China, and I've spent a lot of time in China. I was there over the summer. I went to a really cool conference by Apache Foundation in Beijing, for example. So I'm very actively involved in the Chinese developer scene. And I was thrilled to learn that you have been as well.
Yes, so I was super fortunate enough to be invited by Huawei. They were putting on an event showcasing some of the work some students have done. Huawei has been very active in working with some universities and polytechnics in China, which I think is really exciting. What they have done is kind of rethink how software engineering is today and in the future, and provided kind of, I don't want to call them tech incubators, but working with universities to give students access directly to a lot of resources that Huawei would have. So whether that's, cool products that they're working on or interesting data, which I think is great for a student. It means that, you're not just creating theoretical work, you're actually creating real life stuff that can help solve problems. And then potentially, being hired by these companies and working with them to develop these problems more. So I thought that was really refreshing and great, to be honest. And that's what I think it was the first couple of years that they've been doing this. So showcasing students from all over the world and seeing what they built with access to these amazing technologies. So one of the students that I do remember was some entries from Egypt, and what they built was, it was all kind of tech for good. So this app that actually translates sign language into talk for people who perhaps don't know sign language. So that was a really cool app. Some other Polish contestants made an app for wheelchair users where it shows a kind of map of Poland, specifically for wheelchair access. So this was all really, I mean, I thought it was a great initiative. I really enjoyed my time there. I loved what they were doing in China in terms of that.
Awesome. So even though this was a Chinese event, it's kind of like in the U.S. We frequently fly people out from other countries to participate in big international hackathons and things like that. Huawei, if you're unfamiliar with that and you're listening to this, I've never even heard of this company. If you're in the U.S., like basically like we have import restrictions, you're not going to see Huawei phones in the United States, but they're kind of like Apple in China is like the best way to describe them. They have like Huawei cars and they have Huawei phones and laptops and stuff like that. A lot of Chinese products are not banned. Like you can get like a Lenovo laptop here in the States, as far as I can tell, as far as I know. But for some reason, those are banned, and I'm not going to delve into that because FreeCode, we don't talk about geopolitics. We're a charity, we're tax exempt, and we can't talk about politics basically. But I did want to make sure people knew that if they'd never heard of that company. So, what are some things that you saw with China kind of turning their universities into incubators and using the Chinese university system as like kind of like in the U.S., like Stanford and Berkeley. These are like huge research centers that like at a university level that ultimately create companies. Like companies are productized out of these universities, and you saw in China like Chinese universities were doing similar things.
Yeah, kind of similar. Maybe not so much creating companies, maybe they have before, but definitely showcasing projects that were built using access to all these technologies. So this competition was huge. There was literally over 1,000 applicants there. So seeing that was super, super interesting, and also just being a part of the competition in general. It's just doing a lot of exciting things.
Okay, awesome. And are there any things that you saw when you were in China that you were just like, wow, like this, like, I think they're doing this in a way that like devs in the UAE or devs in Europe or devs in the States could like take a page from their book? Was there any like attitude or approach that you saw that you think is generalizable in that way?
Yes. Well, I'm a bit out of the loop now because I haven't been to university in a while. But one thing that did impress me was the fact that there was no real, from what I understood, there wasn't really a curriculum that's kind of outdated. My understanding is that, especially as someone that does computer science, you sign up to university, you do computer science, and when you finish, half the stuff you learn is completely out of date. So this is using much more like recent technologies that are actually being used. So that was, I thought, the refreshing part, definitely. And also the fact that it's not thesis, it's real life. So that was definitely something that I feel like could be beneficial to not just the students, of course the companies too. I think it's quite a symbiotic relationship.
Awesome. So you've talked a lot about embracing these new technologies as a developer and applauding the fact that a lot of learners are getting their hands on them quickly. Of course, you and I have like nuanced views. We're not just like, get AI into the classrooms, like, I don't believe that at all. I actually don't think AI belongs in classrooms at all. Personally, if anybody wants to know my personal perspective on that, certainly not like for kids, maybe at the university level. But one of the things that like I'm really curious about is you are continuing to learn these new skills. You're continuing to teach developers. I'm just going to ask you point blank, what can developers do to future-proof themselves so that they don't find themselves like they're with their manager saying, oh, we need to bring in somebody who's more, I guess, like aggressive about learning how to use AI or using AI to get their work done or something like that. Like how do you future-proof yourself as a developer?
Yes, I love this question. I really feel like I advocate this quite a lot and I always talk about it. A lot of people maybe wouldn't want to do this, and I'm not going to say it's marketing because it's not really marketing yourself, it's marketing what you make. And I think no one wants to be in a position where they're begging for a job. You want to be in a position where companies are begging you to join because you put yourself out there, you're posting on LinkedIn about the latest projects you've built outside of your current job. So taking the initiative to learn technologies, building, posting amazing READMEs on GitHub, really communicating what you have made and how, interacting with communities either on Twitter, like I said, LinkedIn, and just becoming a bit of again, if you don't want to market yourself as a thought leader, don't, that's absolutely fine, but definitely market what you build. You've spent so much time doing it, you might as well kind of showcase it and talk about it as much as possible. So yes, I would say future-proof yourself, not by begging for jobs, but by getting people to beg you to join the company is a great way to future-proof yourself. And the points that we discussed are putting yourself out there on LinkedIn. You don't want to put yourself out there, put your projects out there. Twitter, also contributing to open source projects. That's always a good one. It's an old one, but a good one. I mean, what better way to get noticed by big companies or your favorite companies than to literally contribute and help them rather than just be like, here's my CV, like, please hire me. No, like get out there and help. Do something proactive. I think that's definitely some advice that I think everyone should be following.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to get an internship at Microsoft or Google or even like Linux Foundation, Cloud Native Foundation, any of these big charities, Apache. You can potentially just go in and contribute to those projects and prove your capabilities and prove your usefulness as a dev.
Yeah. And your passion, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if someone's coming to you and be like, oh, look, I can help in this way, look what I built. It's so much more, as someone who owns a company, I'd be so much more impressed by that passion that someone's just, I've got someone's CV through a tech recruiter, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, 100%. So I just want to recap your advice there. Be public. Don't just like hide your greatness. Show what you're building on LinkedIn, on X Twitter, on whatever, like developer focused place, like get a personal website, right? I mean, you have your own personal domain. You've like spent a great deal of time kind of building your proverbial brand as a developer and as a teacher. And like, not everybody can be an Ania Kubów in terms of just like having this extremely prolific teaching career and creator career, but I suspect many devs can probably just moonlight as somebody who's creating tutorials or moonlight as somebody who's creating projects that they're sharing, even if they're busy as a student or busy as a parent or busy doing a day job. Would you agree with that sentiment? I'm just trying to distill what you said.
100%, yes. Because like I say, I'm fully aware that some people don't want to, put their faces out there and be public in that way. And I'm not saying you have to, but I just feel that if you put in the time and effort to build something, then it deserves to be out there and spoken about, and people deserve to see it, right? So why don't you just maximize the amount of people that see your work?
100%. Last question. JS13K. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I love this competition. I've been a judge on this for I think 4 or 5 years now. It's like a super small indie, well, not so super small anymore, competition, JavaScript games. So this is kind of where I started. My very first YouTube video was a game of Tetris. So I'm really passionate about it, and it's just so incredible to see the entries that people make in just 13 kilobytes, hence the 13 JSK title. And this year's theme, I think you just probably, depending on when this airs, gonna have time to enter. This year's theme is Black Cat. So any games around the theme Black Cat, whether you want to take that literally or not, please enter them. Even if, your game's not completely 100% finished, enter it anyway. It's so much fun. You get to be part of kind of a community as well after it. You get to win prizes for people who are into prizes. Please just check it out.
Yeah, and it's just a good engineering exercise, like dealing with the constraint of 13 kilobytes of code. That's like not a lot.
No.
and trying to, like, you have to do a lot of procedural generation. Does that include libraries and stuff? Like, you can't just import all these graphics libraries.
I don't think you're allowed to use libraries.
Yeah.
I've had to remind myself of the rules.
So the DIY ethic of like just implementing things yourself and dealing with constraints should be really good practice as a software engineer and as a game dev. And of course, in practice, like, you're never going to find a situation where you've only got 13 kilobytes, because space is abundant. This is a contrived engineering exercise, but it's a very good one. And I just want to, emphasize this. If you are watching and you want to challenge yourself, JS13K Games, I've got a link to it in the video description. See if you can impress Ania and her fellow judges.
Yes, please do. The more entries, the better.
And it's free to enter, and there are prizes, and it's run by an organization that's very well run. I've talked to the founder, and they have like the highest ethics. Like, everything is going to be run really well, and you don't need to worry about like your personal data or anything like that. Like, just give it a go. I think you'll really enjoy the process. And of course, at the end of it, you'll have a video demo of an app that you can like host in a browser that people can go and they can play your playable game that's 13 kilobytes, and they can inspect the code and they can say, wow, this person really did it. It should be a good CV bullet point, especially if you're like earlier in your career and you need like impressive things.
Yeah.
So that's my personal endorsement of JS13K. I believe a lot in this organization, what they're doing, and I thank you for being a judge.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's all volunteer run. Like, no one's paying me to promote this or anything like that. It's just a great initiative.
Awesome. Well, Ania, thank you so much for joining us, talking about your cafe, talking about your life as a busy working mom, talking about your life in the UAE and like how things have changed over there, talking about how you leverage AI tools and how people can future-proof their skills. We've covered so much here, and I really appreciate the time, and I appreciate all of the love and craftsmanship you're putting into these courses that you're developing for the freeCodeCamp community.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed being here, and hopefully get to speak on another one soon.
Yeah, most definitely. Everybody tuning in. Until next week, happy coding.
Bye.